Hello, I'm David Chaston with 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz. This week at Everything You Need to Know in 90 seconds at 9 o'clock, with news ahead of a big local week. Firstly, in the US, however, banks who are already under pressure from slower loan growth and low interest rates could be facing yet another challenge as a rising number of Americans fall behind on their credit card payments. In Canada, August residential house sales were down 10% year on year. That's compared with our 20% drop. In China, their banking regulator said the bad loan ratio of Chinese commercial banks stood at 1.86% at the end of August. That's the first decline since 2012, and it's something they need to repeat to get on top of their excessive debt problem. In New Zealand, that ratio is very much lower at 0.6%. However, Chinese banks face a growing challenge in attracting deposits, forcing them to resort to less stable and more costly interbank borrowings, as well as off-balance sheet wealth management products. Deposits have been steadily falling and now account for just 61% of banks' total liabilities and equity as at June, down from 87% in 2008. In New Zealand, that ratio is also 61% at June 2017 and has held steady at that level for the past few years. We all know about China's $3 trillion foreign currency reserves, which have fallen from $4 trillion, but have been holding stable at the lower level for most of 2017. But the up-and-comer is India, whose foreign currency reserves are growing quickly and have just reached $400 billion for the first time. 10 years ago, it was half that level, and in 2017 it's risen fast, up from just $350 billion. In Russia, their central bank has cut its key policy rate again as inflation hit a record low of 4%. There's a fourth rate cut this year to 8.5%. The country's economy is struggling as their recession lingers on, with a lack of structural reforms making recovery uncertain. In Argentina, they've just approved a new government budget, and that is targeting surprisingly strong real growth rate of 3.5%. They've done some hard, painful yards recently after an embarrassing default in 2002, which wasn't resolved until last year. But growth is definitely back on the agenda in Argentina. However, inflation is still a big problem there. It is still expected to be about 16% next year. This coming week will be a big one for economic data and signals in New Zealand. We have another dairy auction on Wednesday. New Zealand GDP data is out on Thursday, along with the next US Fed policy review, all right before Saturday's election. Markets are expecting New Zealand growth at 2.5% in the June quarter, although there may be some upside here. Westpac is expecting 2.8%, as is ANZ. In New York, the US Treasury 10-year yield held on Friday is now at 2.20%. The price of crude oil has risen again, is now just slightly under $50 a barrel, while the Brent benchmark is just over $55.50 a barrel. The price of gold is down $3, now at $1,321 an ounce, and the Kiwi dollar rose as the last week ended in New York, now just under 73 US cents. On the cross rates, we're at 91.1 Aussie cents and 61 euro cents. And the TWI is now at 74.9. I'm David Chaston. That was 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz.